in high school and Bob Dylan drops in and just jams with you. And that's like, just so you know, that's not a normal upbringing.
I mean, with Doc Watson and Jerry Douglas and Sam Bush, it was just this rock and band, and they were just playing acoustic instruments into a microphone. There's going to be a lot of people, and I really want to show up and be centered and on. I'll take 5 minutes before a gig, meditate on how I want my show to look pretty much every day, at least twice a day. Give the universe a little thanks for everything that I have.
Amplified. Welcome back to Oberman Amplified. We have made it to episode 7. Amazing. And our guest, Adam Traum, talks all about being a working musician, being a teacher, being a father, his meditation practice and his faith, how it works with really big shows, how you can always be learning, how you can hustle that dollar if you're looking for new students, new clients. And he did give me a little guitar lesson, which I'm still learning this software, and it like muted all of the guitar parts, and I can't figure out how to get them back. So thanks for bearing with me. It's a learning process. Episode 7. Please sit back, relax. Thanks for liking and subscribing. It helps the channel to grow. And enjoy our guest, Adam Traum, who's also playing my backyard today. So if you see this episode in real time and you're in Sacramento, roll up. Welcome back to Oberman Amplified. I am your host, Kristen Ford, and we are here with the incredible Adam Traum.
Hey, how's it going? Great to see you.
Did I say
man.
your name? I nailed it, right?
You nailed it.
Okay. Adam is an incredible singer-songwriter, a Santa Cruz endorsed guitarist, and has played all over, has played with some of the biggest names in music, which we'll get into some stories, is an educator, is kind of on the cutting edge of teaching in different formats here in the year of 2026, and also resides in Northern California like myself. So I'm just so stoked we connected at NAMM this year, and I got to hear you play a little bit live in the noisiest environment ever, and now we get to have a conversation. So make some noise for our guest, Adam Traum. Yay!
Thank you. I have to tell you, meeting you at NAMM was one of the highlights of my week down there. It was, and then we got to hang out at the Santa Cruz party and have a meal together. I left and I was like, I have a new best friend.
Oh, I love that. I think sometimes there's this idea of like soul pods where it's like you're just kind of like waiting till, this lifetime, next lifetime, a few points along the way.
Yeah.
I probably put my sticker right next to your sticker at some divey club somewhere.
Probably.
So I want to get into the family questions, but first I wanted to talk about sort of like present tense. So you're based in Sonoma, and you're gigging wineries and music festivals, and you're an educator. Can you give me just like this podcast is kind of geared towards music business and people who want to get into entrepreneurship and mindfulness. And what's your like workflow? How do you balance teaching, gigging, writing? Where are we at now?
It's kind of the $1 million question, and it's always evolving. And a good friend of mine once told me that being a working musician is like there's the shotgun effect. It's like just you have to put everything out all sort of simultaneously, and there are people who are much more focused and like, this is the one thing I do. But I've been a music educator for so long, and and taken over working on kind of handling the homespun music instruction. So that takes a lot of my time. But on top of that, I'm still an active songwriter. I love to perform. So I know people who probably perform more than I do, but I really tend to, now I'm forced into a position, not necessarily in a bad way, of really picking and choosing where I play and when I play. I've got nothing's in ink yet, but I've got my first international tour that I've got the dates booked out through
Ooh.
this really great organization called um, it's in Canada. Drawing a blank on the name of the organization, but it's
Yeah, keep it to yourself. You don't want
yeah,
them flooded with
yeah. I don't want to get there. Anyway, but they book about 2 weeks worth of shows in Canada, so it'll probably be so at some point in 2027. I'll work my way up to Canada playing and then work my way back. So that'll probably be my longest tour. I'm a family man. My kids are pretty much gone or almost gone, and so
Where did they
uh,
go?
well, I've got a kid. I've got a kid in college, and one who's getting ready to launch. Um,
Okay. Wow. So
so
you've had children for like 18 years.
yeah, right around the same time I changed my career from a photojournalist to being a working musician, I have a family, and I didn't want to be away from my kid all the time. And so the longest times really I ever went out on the road were a couple weeks at a time, which sort of suited me. I was never like a real road warrior kind of musician. And I might be in a different place professionally in terms of what I'm doing because of that, but I'm I might be playing whatever bigger venues or doing the festival circuit. But, honestly, I wouldn't trade my time with my kid for anything. It's like that just has been the highlight of my life, and the fact that he's now my oldest. I have a biological son, and then a kid who came to live with us later, who's almost out of the house. Um, you know, the the fact that these guys I can also talk to as friends, and it sort of goes. I'll always be dad, but it kind of turns into a different thing, and I love that about my life, and I love that I'm super close with both my boys, and it feels like you know I still have ideally have some time on the meter for me to start getting out more. So I'm going to be starting to tour more
Absolutely. So a
adventurously now that
Canadian,
I have fewer things going on here at home.
that's cool. So a Canadian tour in the works, and
Yep.
this is going to be you solo playing acoustic guitar, and you have a really unique style.
Yeah, and I think I've been talking to my bass player. He may come with me. He's been with me for about 10 years because
Upright bass
it's a lot
player.
of alone time. So he may be joining me. Although I don't mind alone time, but it's those having someone to help drive might be nice.
Absolutely. As someone who's done a lot of solo road tripping, it's just, or not road tripping, but touring, even having someone when you're like trying to unload the equipment,
Mm-hmm.
make sure that the car doesn't get towed when you're double parked,
Yep.
or to maybe like help pick up your gear if there's another act coming up so that you can run over to the merch booth and be the
Yes.
face because you're the singer. Like having two people is really very clutch. So as an educator, how did you get into like teaching lessons? Was it kind of like you're like, "Oh, I have, a kid on the way and I need to like make more money and not be traveling with the photojournalism," which I want to circle back to talk about that. But just if someone's like, "Oh, well, I play pretty well, or I've been in bands, I could maybe help at a school of rock, or I could jump in at a school and just how, what any tips on like what do you charge? Like how do you get students? How do you even break into it? What are the qualifications?
Um, I I taught a little bit when I was living in San Francisco and I was working for the Chronicle. I had a news agency gig and I was a freelancer at the San Francisco Chronicle, which incidentally was where I met my wife. And so it was so I was kind of supplementing my income. I just did a Craigslist ad saying guitar lessons, people started coming to my house, um, and then when I moved up to Sonoma, I got a little bit of coverage at the local newspaper, and people started calling me, and so with all that, I think it happened very organically, and um, and I think on some level, because my dad was such a great guitar teacher, and I saw him teaching, I kind of learned. And growing up around homespun music instruction, I learned a little bit about how to present things in a cogent way where people can understand it and uh, grasp musical concepts. So things kind of happened really organically, and then like one student built on another. Word of mouth really was the key to my teaching success. I think when I had my heaviest teaching load, I maybe had 15 people or 20 people a week. Um, and I was
Wow.
playing not very lucrative gigs, but I was playing gigs as well. Um, and then I started doing editing work for Homespun, and then uh, started just kind of learning, sort of getting into the business. And then with with my dad, we taught a couple workshops together at different festivals and played some different festivals, and that kind of got my toe in that world, and cracked the door for that. And it's I think the best thing you can do, I would say, for people wanting to get into the teaching world, is get to your local music store, let them know that uh you've got availability in your schedule, and then talk to other instructors, and say, hey, if you got somebody who is in this specialty, there's for a little while when I had more time, I taught at the Sonoma Community Center. They had me teaching uh, kids first, then adults, two different classes. So that was kind of that was kind of how I got into that those different teaching roles. And there's a lot of community resources. Also finding stuff where, if you post a lesson online, it's really easy to post things on YouTube,
Mm.
and Instagram. And so I sort of let it slide a little bit. I'm getting back into it, teaching little shorties on Instagram. I've got picked up a lot of followers, and on YouTube and on Facebook. So, my following has increased a lot just by using social media, which when I first got into it wasn't there.
Yeah, but I think that there's real strength in kind of the old ways of like going to a store in person and seeing who physically is in the community that is teaching and has students, and maybe they are full and they give you one of their students, or their student is really really interested in like this kind of bluegrass riff and they're not there. And yeah, I love that. And I also think that I use the analogy of like bourbon chicken at the mall, where if you're going to buy a plate of the chicken, you're going to spend the 10-12 bucks. They're going to have some chicken on a toothpick that they're just like giving out the samples, and that's your little riffs
Right.
on the internet. And also, who knows if that turns into someone who's going to be a fan at your shows or buying your records, or the ripple effect is truly infinite. That's
Yeah.
I
And if
think
I
that's
could highlight
really sound
something that you
advice.
said, referrals between your peers are really important. Like I've got a friend who doesn't teach kids. He doesn't want to. He doesn't have any interest in teaching kids. So someone says, I got a 10-year-old who wants to learn guitar. I'm like his first referral. Or if there's people, I can play some jazz. I've studied jazz. I'm not a bad player. I know the chords. I could
You
teach
got
a
some
head if I,
sevenths.
yeah, I can teach a 251 if I have to, but there's people out there who are way better at that. So if someone says, I want to learn that, or probably more common is somebody says their kid's into metal. I'm not,
Mhm.
I could teach some basic metal solo sweet principles, but that's not my bag. So
Mhm.
I'll almost always refer them out to somebody else who's that's that's more their world.
That's yeah, or maybe has more tattoos. I don't know how heavily tattooed you are, but,
I have a couple pieces, but I don't have a sleeve.
so I wanted to talk to you about, your dad, Happy Traum, and also you have this beautiful song called Legacy,
Hmm.
talking about being, like, 4 years old and sitting on the ground and hearing your dad play guitar,
Yep.
and I also learned on your website that you were in a band um, in high school, and Bob Dylan drops in and just jams with you. And that's like, just so you know, that's not a normal upbringing. So I just would love to hear about, your dad, rest in power, like what he was like to look up to and learn from, and then also like what is the legacy when your dad's like a folk icon.
For a long time, uh, I really felt like I wanted to carve my own path and do my own thing, and I did for a long time. Um, because I felt very strongly that I didn't want to be like, yeah, that's Happy Traum's kid. He's not as good as him. You know what I mean? Like I felt like as ridiculous as it sounds to me now, I felt like I hadn't earned that that thing yet. And then uh at a certain point I started feeling like, yeah, I can hang with him. I can hang with most people. There's obviously a lot of really great guitar players who I can't hang with, um but most people in my kind of world I can hang with, and have, and so I think I got to a point with my confidence where I felt like I could kind of lay in that card about Happy being my dad.
And
But
you're
he
his
was
only child, right? His only son?
I'm his only son. I have two
Oh, okay.
sisters.
Sorry, sisters. Jeez, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
my
Girls,
sisters
love
April
ya.
and Mary, but my sister April is a killer drummer. She's a really good drummer.
Cool.
She never did it as a job, but she played in some bands, and that's where she met her husband. And then my oldest sister is a makeup artist on the Pit.
Wow.
Yeah,
Congrats on all the Emmy success.
I know
That's
she's an Emmy
great.
nominee.
Ah, great.
She's worked really hard at it for a long time, and she does amazing work and is incredibly committed. And I couldn't be more proud of what she's done and achieved. And so in a lot of ways, my dad being the folk icon that he was sort of secondary to just both my parents being really supportive. I was really lucky to have two parents who were, always in my corner, and also always very honest about anything I did that sometimes was a pain in the ass. Like I
Mm.
would say, "Oh yeah, I got this recording," especially when I was first starting out and first starting to record, and my dad would be like, "Well, I don't know," and I
'Cause
sometimes
it
wouldn't
wasn't
get
very
the
good?
answer I wanted. Oh,
Mm.
good job, son. But they there was they I think both my mom's still alive and well, and she's doing great. Just I totally admire everything she's done. But it's having parents who both were very supportive, but also were kind of tough. Like if there was something that I did that wasn't great, I would hear it. Or if my grades weren't good in school, I would catch a lot of grief for it. And I was not the best student. So, like, in a lot of ways, growing up in Woodstock, New York, when I was growing up, where I was growing up, a lot of my friends' parents were smoking weed with them, they were almost feral children running around. And, you know, and didn't have that kind of really traditional house, um, like that was sort of the life that I had. So it was almost the fact that my dad was a folk icon was almost secondary to him being just
Like
being
kind of a hard
being
ass.
I wouldn't say hard ass. That's not quite the right thing, but like wouldn't let things slide.
Hmm.
You know,
When
if
he
the
when he loved something that you made though, would it hit
absolutely,
harder when you were like, "Dad, I really worked on this song, like, here it is." If you got the, like, "Good job," would it really land because you didn't get it every time?
absolutely, it made all the difference. Like I knew it wasn't just some cheap, you know, pat on the head, good job, son. It was like it was really heartfelt and meant something.
Uh-huh.
And and I think it also forced me to not forced, but gave me the drive to really do well and to do better as an artist and always strive to be better.
Yeah,
Uh,
and you have really not shied away from challenges. Like, I think maybe seeing your parents kind of lead sort of like a normal upbringing for you while your dad is, you know, hanging out with Woody Guthrie or, all that. And that scene, and then you're saying, "Oh, I'm gonna make a living as a photojournalist." That's I mean, it obviously was this like the mid '90s? Was like a different time in
was
terms of
it was
digital photography and
I got out of
um.
college. I graduated in 1989. The girl that I was seeing, who we kind of met our freshman year in college, and we dated all through college, and about a year or so afterwards, we dated through that. She had gotten a job in Washington D.C. and I was like, I didn't really have a lot of vision of what I wanted to do. I knew I loved making pictures. I didn't really have anything to go back to in Woodstock. I mean, I could have sorted something out, but I was like, I'll give it a try. Let's see what happens. Ironically enough, she got married to a wonderful guy, and after years of kind of not talking, as these things go, we're really good friends today. And I because we in a lot of ways grew up together, and
Soul Pod.
yeah, and we grow and I was working in Georgia at the time, in Savannah, Georgia, and she and her husband had finished a place in San Francisco, a granny unit, and they said, "Hey, you want to come live with us?"
What's a
And
granny unit?
oh, it's like an ADU kind of unit.
Okay. I've heard the in-law house, I've heard the Airbnb shed, but
Yeah. Sorry,
granny unit.
my cat was about to intercede on the call, so I had to move
Was
her
it
out.
cats or dogs for you, Adam?
Well, we have two cats and we have a little dog. I've always been a dog guy. I will stop in my tracks with dogs. I'm like they see a sucker a mile away, and like
Mhm.
and I'm all in, I'll be rolling on the floor with a dog. I will not be rolling on the floor with a cat. Um
That's fair.
but I generally like furry creatures. Um and I like critters in general, so you know.
We should start an app where, like, if you're a dog person and you're traveling or you haven't got to, like, pet a big dog, somebody just, like, comes around and lets you, like, pet their dog.
I
'Cause
know.
when we got dinner at NAMM, I actually almost got attacked by some dogs because I hadn't seen my 2 dogs in, like, 4 days, and I saw these cute dogs, and I, like, was like, "Hi," and they they almost bit me. It's like,
Yeah. I'm always
"Why are you
careful
bringing
about
your
that.
dogs around if they're not nice?"
I know. I'm always careful. I'm always like, all right, must control myself around dogs. But
So you were in DC
Yeah, so I was in
doing
DC and
photos, and then eventually you came out to live in the Granny unit in San Francisco.
yeah, I lived in DC, and then I started in Northern Virginia, and then moved into town, moved back out of town across the river to Arlington, Virginia. And then a buddy of mine who I had worked with in at the Reston Times, we used to jokingly call it the Reston Crimes. So I was working at this chain of weekly newspapers, and then he had moved down to Georgia. He had moved down because his wife had enrolled at Savannah College of Art and Design, and he got a job at the newspaper down there. And so I eventually ended up going down there and spent 5 years in Savannah.
What a great place to be for 5 years.
Savannah was a real revelation in a lot of ways. It was a place where I really kind of sowed some oats. And the other thing that I will forever be appreciative for Savannah, is one of my closest friends. I played in a band with him. We're still really good friends. He lives in LA. His name's Javier Matos, and great blues player. We had a band down there, and I really, living down there, I had understood. It played. I had sort of an acoustic conversion because I was playing sort of alternative bands, rocking out a little bit, and loved Zeppelin. Still love Zeppelin,
I discovered pot and Led Zeppelin like at the same time. It
as
was
many of
awesome.
us did. so like I loved all these blues driven rock bands, but I really felt like but I went to Merlefest in 1993 or something like that, and had been playing in this really subpar rock band, and I had just come off this gig where the very clueless uh guy who was running the band, whose band it was really excited because we were playing in Baltimore's red light district, and we got the headlining spot at 1 a.m. And
Hmm.
I was like, yeah, this ain't really what I want to be doing at 1 a.m. I'm up in Baltimore, and I gotta go, and then I got another hour drive back to Washington and unload all my gear, and
I've
and
literally had bands break up at that gig at that time where they're just like, why are we doing this? We loaded in our gear at 7 p.m. We have drank our allotted free PBR tall boys, and now we're just sad and it's late and no one's here and we're not going to make any money. And then
right,
we have to go back home and not sleep so that we can do things that make money.
yeah, and then the next day, or the next gig, I think was our last gig, and we played up at Towson State up in Maryland. And the problem with our gig at Towson State was that school was on break.
Mhm.
So we were playing.
Like, was it booked through campus activities or you just like knew somebody at a frat or
The dude just knew somebody,
okay.
and booked a gig and didn't bother to ask if school was in session. Um, and so I was just coming off of that, and then I went to Merlefest, and I saw
Which is
Tony
a
Wright,
folk music
folk
festival,
music
which is
festival in North
camping,
Carolina.
right? And there's like jams and
Yeah,
all
yeah.
that stuff.
At the time, it was still early in Merlefest's history, and it was a much smaller, localized kind of festival. Every year, they would have Tony Rice playing with, and they'd be jamming with Doc Watson and Jerry Douglas and Sam Bush, and I think Mark Schatz, who's now living in the Bay Area, was playing bass. And it was just this rock and band, and I was playing in this electric band, and these guys were rocking way harder than we ever rocked,
Mm.
and they were just playing acoustic instruments into a microphone. And I was like, that's what I got to do. And so I got with a college friend of mine who I'm still in touch with, and we started jamming, and he had started down that acoustic road. And then I told my dad what I was up to, and he started sending me things. Like, he sent me a bunch of CDs with like The Rising Suns, which was Ry Cooder and Taj Mahal. And he sent me Ry Cooder's Paradise and Lunch and all these. And then like I just get these random things in the mail. Hey, check out this. You might enjoy this. And that really sparked my love affair with roots music and acoustic music. And I really
And
came
why
back
was
into the
he
folk.
sending you this stuff? Like he didn't want anything from you. He just,
Just thought I'd enjoy them.
yeah, that's
And
sweet.
and like that was very characteristic, you know, my dad for his whole life just loved sharing music. And I know we're bouncing around a little bit, but this actually leads back to Savannah sort of indirectly. And my dad was really excited, and then we started playing together. And I'd kind of we'd go to I used to help them at festivals sell homespun music, homespun tape stuff. At the time it was homespun tapes. And I would go and I'd talk to, and we'd be sitting in a hotel room, and he'd show me something, and I'd pick stuff up. And like there were certain things that he taught me that I really was like, oh, all right, this is cool, this makes sense. But when I got to Savannah, all that music that I had been studying and the stuff that he had been sending me, um just something about that southern humidity and the pace of life, and just being, seeing all the Spanish moss hanging off of trees, and that sort of slowed down pace of life really made me understand kind of where that groove came from and all that great southern music that I was digging into. And I mentioned my friend Javier with our band. He was in the Army, stationed at Hunter Army Airfield, and we would he lived in my neighborhood, and we met at some open mic nights and started jamming. And we would open a bottle of whiskey and start, putting on blues records and trying to figure out what everybody was doing. And like it was a really exploratory time in my life. And I had this friend, and she was uh
I just want to pause you right there for 1 second, just to really like have our listeners think about you're listening to a vinyl record or a tape or a CD.
vinyl.
You're listening to vinyl. Okay, the whiskey's a nice touch, but just got your guitars out and you're taking the time to feel the music, hear the music, learn the music, emulate the music. And in 2026, when's the last time any of us have taken that kind of time to really enjoy art? You're
I
like, I
still
do it
do it.
every day.
I still do it the old way.
Well, I just think that's like, we have all the information all the time, but that is where a really rich finding your own sound, finding your own voice, honing your chops comes in. So yeah, just bravo. I love that. I wish I had a time machine to like hang out with you guys. That sounds like
I
really
wish
fun.
you could have
Sorry.
too. Yeah, anyway, we would have had a blast. So we just would do that a couple nights a week, and then we'd play a gig and, try and play these songs the way we could, best of our ability. And concurrently, I had this friend, and she gave me a pile of CDs. Um, and one was Steve Earle's Guitar Town, one was Jimmy Dale Gilmore CD, and I later on played with Jimmy. I did a tour with Jimmy, and got to be
Wow.
and friends with him and Colin, his son Colin, um, and Robert Earl Keen, and like all these great Texas songwriters, Towns Van Zandt, and like the the collision of those two worlds was like a big bang in my life.
Hmm. Better than the mediocre rock band with the asshole running it.
Well, all of a
Yeah.
sudden it occurred to me, I was like, well, look, here are these guys, and they're taking these, and Iris Dement. I don't want to just say guys. Iris Dement was in that pile, and I found out later a family friend had produced that album. but like
Wow.
hearing Iris Dement's delivery and hearing, these songwriters infusing all that stuff that came from the old world, like that came from those. I saw that connection between these songwriters and all these and the groove of these blues guys
Hmm.
and like that tradition, that oral tradition. And it was really just uh that was something that just opened up a whole world to me, and really was was the thing that got me to kind of understand these things and said, all right, well, I'm forever going to be a student of this.
And that's really like liberating in a way to say like it's less. It's an acoustic guitar, it's a song, it's not like has to be a rock club full of people with the right lights, with the right riffs, which hopefully the management will get it on the radio at the right time and we'll have a single that hits and it's like all this other stuff where I almost feel like it's similar now to people are realizing they can produce any kind of beat they want in their computer and they can like they're not beholden to other people to give them the power. You were like, I can take this power.
Yeah.
And also you are your dad's Jewish or
Yes.
your
Both my parents.
both your parents. And that's I think that's also like probably ties into why they didn't want you like just fucking around in school. They want you to actually like make something because that's a very recent intergenerational trauma dealing with World War II and the Holocaust and like
Hmm.
not to let's bring it down. Let's talk about the but I do think there's a certain like when you talk about American roots and you talk about blues and what came out of slavery, um, there's a similar maybe within the folk scene and the Greenwich Village and the Jewish tradition of like, hey, we need to like go out here and kick ass because we're still here and we are the lineage of something that's so badass and we're really proud of it. And bringing those things together with American roots. Oh, it kind of makes me like really excited. I'm like, I need to hear some folk music like right now.
Well,
This is gonna
yeah,
be
and the
great.
thing, and my dad was also he was a my both my parents were very involved in civil rights, and I think a lot of Jewish people felt the importance of speaking out for people's civil rights. Um, you know, be, because of that experience. Now, my family wasn't directly affected by the Holocaust. Most of
Uh-huh.
my family was over here by the turn of the 20th century. Um, we came over in that wave of people. But, I think culturally that doesn't change. Like that stuff is still a part of you. You carry that stuff. And, I, it saddens me that we as a species haven't learned that lesson yet, that, you know, we can't be doing that stuff.
I think
It's like,
it's like there's Save the Whales folk music, I like to say, where it's like,
yeah,
maybe you're playing Folk Alliance in a hotel room for a bunch of people who love folk music, but then there's also like, you look at Bob Marley and the music coming out of Jamaica when they're basically in a civil war, and you look at the music of the civil rights, and you look at Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, like Four Dead in Ohio,
yeah,
and you look at like, Fight the Power, like the birth of hip hop. And now it's like,
yeah,
okay, we got another challenge as a country. So who's gonna write the brave songs? Who's gonna put the
right,
music out, even though it's noisy, even though it's
right,
challenging?
yeah.
It's everything's changed. But
And I
wow, so
definitely
you
include
you
that in
fell
my
in love.
catalog. Yeah.
You fell in love with the roots music. And so was this sort of like the combined with the Tony Rice Merle Fest moment?
No, that was a little bit later. That was
Okay.
well, no, I'm sorry. That was after the Tony Rice moment
Mm.
for me. So like sort of if I have to put it on a timeline, 1992, 1993, that was sort of around when I saw Tony and all of them doing that. And then I worked at it for a couple of years, and then I moved to Savannah in 1995. So there was this probably 6 or 7 year period that was a real period of growth for me as discovering who I was, discovering my voice a little bit.
Mhm.
It's obviously always developing, but discovering that was sort of like the genesis of my journey, I think, probably.
Do you feel like it gave you in some ways like permission to step out of your dad's shadow to be like, I have my own North Star of what is really like moving me, pinning the gas pedal down forward and music?
I think so. I think that's safe to say. Especially giving I having my own voice, like starting to understand who I was and what moved me as a performer, where my differences lay, all which was always fun to play with him because when I used to play with my dad, it was great because I had my own thing, he did his thing, and one of the kind of interesting journeys for me was after he passed away, we did a couple tribute concerts, and in a way, I kind of got closer to him. Uh, Even than before because I was learning his arrangements on some things and learning some of his songs.
Wow, was that very painful though? Was that hard to
Um, yes and no. Like I really after he died, it was like there was this real kind of like crap where in a way just sort of referencing your North Star, like that was always, the thing I could keep coming back to was, if I had a question, I could keep coming back to that. And I was at that point, I sort of was like, all right, well, I have to find my own way in here now. It's so um, so it was hard, but it was also kind of comforting too.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Um, yeah, that's kind of beautiful to just carry on, the legacies.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's so proud of you.
And it was
I want
very and my playing was really a lot about how I processed my grief too.
mm,
Like
yes,
I would just kind of go into my cave and and I would just get engrossed in it and sort of really, and I think in some ways it deepened my playing and deepened my sound and also elevated my appreciation for what I not only like what I was gifted as far as, this amazing history and legacy behind me, but also but also like what the possibilities were can be and how do I carry this forward?
I love that. Uh, kind of keeping about talking about just like feelings and energy and so something that I don't know, I've struggled with in our society what we think has value and what doesn't. Like, I'm currently working at a restaurant where like on a decent shift, I'm making upwards of $50 an hour, and when you are putting your heart and soul into music and then you release it and then it can be like okay, then there's like no money or there's no real response. And I noticed that you are playing, in your community. You said you can pick and choose your gigs, but wineries, like a lot of times that's kind of like 3 hour set, maybe background. People are enjoying it and I'm sure you get fans. And but like how do you because I kind of had an ego response to that where I was like, because I've been digging into your catalog and listening to your music, and like, you're amazing. You're so talented. Like,
Thank you.
you should be like center stage of the Ryman, like ticketed shows, like not like some winery. So how do you protect your energy either when you're putting something out that you've worked hard on, or you're like exchanging your services for like, okay, this little 10-year-old kid is, like 60 an hour, 100 an hour, whatever it is,
Yeah.
or you're in the restaurant and you're doing the gig and it's like part of the bigger picture of like you love music, you're playing music, you're getting out there. How do you protect your heart?
I've been asked a similar question. So, they said, when you're in the room and you're doing a gig and nobody's paying attention, like, does it hurt? And the answer then is still the answer, which is it's about the work and it's about loving what you do, wherever you're doing it. So, for me, I still plan on getting to the Ryman. It's like
Hell yeah.
that's that's like I'm still planning on, I'm still planning on big things, but the the fact is you don't get to do the big things if you don't do the little things right. And you don't do it with at honesty and really understanding that, I'm not doing this because I'm looking for some kind of glory, but I'm doing this because it's what I'm passionate about and I love to do it.
Wow.
Whether I'm sitting at home, whether I'm playing in front of a winery, and the fact is I could do a bar gig, make less money and be playing till 2 in the morning, or I could play at a winery, make more money, come home with wine and be be chilling in my PJs and by 9 o'clock.
Yeah, and you're in wine country, so
And I'm with this is where the economy is.
Mm,
If I'm someplace else where there's a different economy, then I'd be doing that, but that's just where I am.
mhm,
Um but it's such a gift to actually be able to do this for a life,
wow.
that that's so really it's just about the work. And like I played last Saturday and it was at this really cool room. It's this converted firehouse. And the woman who books it is really, she loves music. Her bosses don't quite understand as much as she does about the importance of having professionals and really good people there. But it was a great show, and that everybody who was in there really dug it. And they
Mhm,
showed their appreciation with really good tips. And they were like, they totally were all in on what I was doing. Even though I was sort of background, people were hanging out, but after almost every song, people clapped. At the end of the night, people were asking for more. Um,
mhm,
and I think if you approach it from a place of wanting to really deliver a great show, no matter what the show is, whether you're playing to one person, you're playing to 10,000 people, like it's not about the ego. It's about how are you serving the song, and are you doing this with passion and with integrity and with all your heart. And
wow.
and I think if I can if I can do that each time, and I'm not like I'm not like overjoyed at every gig. There's gigs where I'm just like, all right, well, I'm just making money. I'm
Mhm,
logging hours. Like there are those gigs for sure. But at the end of the day, as soon as I start going, I could be sitting at home and just not be doing this. I could be playing in my living room. I just think, but you're playing and you're getting paid to play. So suck it up, buttercup, and
mm,
and do your job and do it right and do it with integrity. And I think like that kind of integrity carries over into our whole lives. And if we do if we're doing our jobs right as musicians, no matter what the gig is, we're doing it on that level.
Wow. There's so much wisdom that you just dropped there, like, amazing. You're a Taekwondo black belt, which, one of my guests, Helen Yee, is a Taekwondo Olympian, so I think that's cool that somehow Oberman Amplified is, like, big with the Taekwondo crowd. How did how do you find time to be a photographer, a great dad who's present, a musician, and you're, I don't know, getting in fights? What's that all about?
Friday night fighting, man.
The first rule is you don't talk about
Yeah, we don't
Fight
talk
Club.
about Fight Club. No. Well, I have put photography on the back burner. There's only so many hours in the day. Um, I was a really active swimmer for a long time until my neighborhood pool closed, which just absolutely sucked. And Taekwondo kind of replaced that. Um, but you know, Taekwondo, it's more. I was talking about integrity. There's 5 tenets of Taekwondo: courtesy, integrity, perseverance, indomitable spirit, and of course we're on. And I'm totally spacing on the last one: courtesy, perseverance, um, courtesy, integrity, perseverance, indomitable spirit. Anyway, there's these tenets of Taekwondo. I'm a little embarrassed here, but
I'm looking it up right now.
courtesy, integrity, perseverance, indomitable
Self-control,
self-control. That's the one I was missing.
courtesy, integrity,
Yeah,
perseverance, self-control, and
yeah.
indomitable
Indomitable
spirit, which I
spirit.
don't know what indomitable spirit
It
means.
means even when the odds are stacked against you, even when you're not feeling 100%, you keep going.
That's that gig mentality.
Yep.
Indomitable spirit. That's why I got burnt out.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
have it.
Yeah. So, um, I'm so embarrassed that I spaced on that last one. It was that, like, all right, yeah, as we
It's
say,
well, we're switching gears all over the place, but
executive moment, as we say. So in Taekwondo, you're not a senior, you're an executive when you're older. So, but it's the discipline isn't that different from music, really. You learn your forms, and you never perfect them. You just get them better.
mm. And it's
You know.
probably a feeling that you have that you carry with you where, like, if you need to react in a moment, if
Yes.
someone's in need, or if someone tries to take your guitar or something, like, you're ready. It's
Yeah.
in you.
My first job is not to use it. Like, if I'm doing it correctly, I'll be able to talk my way out of a situation or run away.
Yeah.
But I know that if I'm in a place, I can probably get myself out of a situation.
Well, I wanted to talk to you a bit about your guitar course that you sell, or
Yeah.
is it a school that's online, or can you
Yeah.
talk to me a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Homespun music instruction. Let me grab my guitar here.
I do have I have a guitar here. That's strange.
Yeah. Amazing. Musicians who have guitars. This is my Santa Cruz OM. It's sort of my workhorse. I love this thing.
Beautiful.
I love this guitar so much.
And then you're not far from Santa Cruz, a few hours
No.
down the road.
All right. So Homespun's been around since 1967, and so I don't even know how many lessons I've got. Um, but I've got a bunch of different Homespun lessons. Um, and they range. The one I just put out is called Connecting the Dots, which connects these dots up there. So it's like how to understand if I'm playing something here, how do I play it up there? Things like that. Yeah. As our I had a friend who had a teacher for a while who goes, just do it like I do it. Just do
Um,
it.
so yeah, you wear many, many hats. I think you were wearing a great hat, like, and you're very stylish, which I have a little passion for fashion. You were wearing a hat when we met and a cool, like, cowboy shirt, and I
Yeah.
wanna talk to you about your band Wolf Run briefly.
Yeah.
You are waterfalling singles, which is very smart these days, right? Give yourself as many chances to have people discover your music, hear the single, learn about the band, Wolf Run, and then you have a full-length album that's coming,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Cool.
So when I started Wolf Run with my buddy Jack Hines, who I've been playing with for about 12 years now. Um and we were doing duo shows, and he lives in a neighborhood near a place called Wolf Run. So we were like, let's just name our band Wolf Run because we needed a name because Jack and Adam, or Adam and Jack, wasn't really cutting it. Um, and so we
Yeah, Wolf Run
decided,
is better.
yeah,
Better.
totally. So I often refer to Jack as my brother from another mother. Anyway, he's one of my very, very closest friends on the planet. And we brought in a really great drummer, this guy, Kendrick Freeman, who can do anything on the planet on the kit. And he's just amazing. And it took us a long time to get the album out because we started it during the pandemic, and we just all of a sudden, like, and the thing kind of grew into a a little bit of a monster of a project. But I'm really happy we did the work on it, and um it's a beautiful, it's there's some beautiful stuff on it, a lot of really poignant things that are very current, a couple of songs. We've got a rocker to end it called Geronimo, based on a book of Geronimo's story that I read from Geronimo. It was, I believe the book was Geronimo Speaks. And, um, and it was just, imagining him telling the story of his life. Um, so, and my plan is if that song does anything and catches that, I want to take some of my royalty money and give it to some of the Native American causes, because I think that's there's a lot of poverty in the Native American world that we have to answer for, and we should. And so
Yeah,
that's going to be part of my plan with that song, if again if it catches.
that's great. I mean, hey, put it on Bandcamp. Sell
Yeah.
at your shows,
Yep.
and you never know, there might be, if you get a sync placement or, something, one song can have legs. And I do think that it's really beautiful that you were like, I wouldn't trade any time I had with my family, and you've made certain choices career-wise. But also I think the way that the music industry is now is there's really not, I really don't think there's a disadvantage to being a little bit older. Like you said, you found your voice. You actually are telling stories rather than just being in, like, survival mode, or like, "Oh, I don't know, I started a band, like, let's get on stage." You actually are choosing songs that have meaning and telling stories, and you've worked the craft, you've honed it, you've earned it with playing big shows, small shows, and I think we're at a point now where things are fracturing, where, the algorithm is going to maybe find someone who loves your riffs,
Right.
or is going to find someone who is a historian and is, like, digging into this part of history. And they're like, oh my God, this book Geronimo Speaks, if only there was music that went with it. There it
Yeah.
is. And, and also, like, I don't know, do you ever watch Stranger Things on
Yeah.
Netflix?
Yeah.
So the Kate Bush song,
Yeah.
I
Running
just
up the
love
hill.
that she did not do interviews after that. She did not do a new music video. She did not go on tour. And the song went to number one. She just said, I'm Kate Bush. Well, actually, I don't know what she said. I don't think she did anything. And I think it's um, it's just nice to have examples like that when I think we have hustle and grind culture, and it's like I should be doing more, I could be doing more, and I love your presence, Adam, just in terms of like it seems like you're just really at peace with a lot of things. Even like, hey, I don't have enough hours in the day to really super pursue photography, but I do all these other things that interest me. I have a rock band with my friends. I get to like pay tribute to my dad's guitar playing, like, and help carry on that legacy. I'm involved with the Santa Cruz family. I mean, you're just adding a lot of service, and I think as people are trying to maybe like step into your big shoes and be like, how do I achieve this kind of success? It seems like you're just like leading with service. It's not like, how do I get an endorsement? It's what works with my playing style and how am I presenting music? And then the
Yeah.
brands will show up to support.
And I will admit to having imposter syndrome all the time. Uh,
Mm.
and then when I look at what I'm up to, I say, well, all right, maybe I'm being a little hard on myself because I'm always probably harder on myself than I should be. I have a I have a vision of not only where I want to be, but also, you know, how how good I want to be. And, I haven't gotten there yet. I recognize that I'm on my way, but, um, as an example, I'm teaching at Richard Thompson's camp again this year, and Mary Gaucher is going to be there, and Rory Block, who I've known my whole life, which I'm really excited about being on staff with Rory, and then of course Richard Thompson and Zach, who's
Wow.
very accomplished for a guy, Zach Hobbs, who's his grandson, who's very accomplished for his age, and Jack Thompson, and like I've gotten to know, and Teddy Thompson, like all of these people are so accomplished at what they do. So like I look at
And
I
you're teaching alongside them.
and I'm teaching alongside of
Yeah.
them, and I have a little bit of imposter syndrome because I don't have the number one hit yet. I don't have this, or
Well,
but
just ask Mary if she wants to, get together, and I will drive to Sonoma. I will. We can do that. We can shed.
yeah, yeah, I know, but at the same time, it's like, but I've spent 20 years, 20 years as this being my day job. So yeah, I've put in the work, and I have to sometimes remind myself, like, dude, you've done the work, you know,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I continue to do the work. And, if every day I can just get a little bit better and try a little harder and, polish a little bit more, that's, that's the game. And like I was saying, whenever I play, it's about doing the work with integrity, doing the work with with joy and love for what I do, and appreciating, everything that I have. Like it's amazing.
That's so great. Tony Robbins has a quote that he says, "We often overestimate what we can do in 1 year and underestimate what we can do in 10 years." And I think that, yeah, absolutely, just staying on, this is where I wanna go. Are you, writing in a journal? Are you a vision board? Are you a calendar person?
I'm a journal guy.
Don't call it a diary, it's a journal.
Whatever. Diary, journal. I'm not as consistent as I should be, but I am,
Mm.
somewhat consistent. I try and stay to my meditative practice. That helps me a lot. Helps me stay focused in my day.
What
Um,
is your, meditation practice? If you
I just sit quietly. I set a timer for 10 minutes and sit quietly for 10 minutes and breathe.
you do that in the morning?
Yeah, usually. Or if I'm
Fun.
feeling like stressed or angsty,
Just
I
anytime.
anytime I feel like I need it. Sometimes if I've got a bigger show, if I've got a show where there's going to be a lot of people and I really want to show up and be centered and on, I'll
Mhm.
take 5 minutes before a gig and sit and meditate on how I want my show to look. and how I
Oh.
want my show to go over.
Huh.
I pretty much every day, at least twice a day, I I give the universe a little thanks um for everything that I have, you know.
Mm, I love that.
I think expressing gratitude for everything that we have is really important because it's a reminder, that like, look, we're not guaranteed a tomorrow,
Mhm.
and just we're not guaranteed friends or food or, we these are all things that we're fortunate to have. And
Yeah.
and so I just try and, again, it's just about, as much as I can, living with those good values and integrity, and feeling like at the end of the day I can be proud of what I did.
Wow. I love that so much. Well, I think that's kind of a great place to leave it. I just have one final thing I do every episode here on Oberman Amplified. This was my grandmother's piece of piano music, Leave Me with a Smile. And I just ask, can you leave us with a joke or a funny story to leave us with a smile? Leave me with a smile.
I have a kind of ridiculous joke here.
Okay.
We were talking about cats and dogs. Not the best. My dad was an amazing joke teller. I am not the joke teller that my dad is, but this is one that I heard from my drummer, who's got a whole arsenal of amazing jokes. But this is one he told me. So this cat and dog go up to heaven, and they arrive at the same time. Peter takes them to see God, and God's sitting on the throne, and, big throne, and he's sitting out there and sees the dog, and he goes, "Oh, you are a good dog. You've been a good dog your whole life. You made your people happy. Come on over and sit to my right." Dog wags his tail and goes, sits down, licks God's hands, and God scritches between his ears. And then God looks at the cat, and the cat is giving him the side eye, going, "Excuse me, you're in my chair."
That's great.
There, there you have it. It's clean. It's not
It's
offensive.
clean. It's clean. I got a lot of bad ones.
I know. I have plenty of ones that are not totally clean, but I didn't want to do
I
them.
think it's very
Um,
on brand. Well, Adam Traum, people can find your music on your website. Your teaching is there. And hopefully I'll
yep.
be catching you live.
AdamTraumGuitar.com, Homespun.com, all over the grams and the nets and whatever.
All right.
Wolfrun.net is my band's website. We'll have all of our new stuff up there pretty soon, and we'll be
Wolf
booking shows.
Run.
Wolfrun.
That's
So,
great.
thank you so much for running overtime with me. I could talk to you all day, and I hope to see you in Sacramento or here, and we can hang out. We can hang out all day.
Yeah, I mean, well, we got that co-write with Mary Gauthier coming up. So
That's right, we do.
thank you, Adam Traum. We
you keep
appreciate you.
you keep on
And
rocking.
for sure. Peace.
Have a great one. Thank you so.